Welcome to the Travelman Podcast. I'm your host, Ben, your travel buddy. And on today's episode, I'll be talking to my pal, Shawn, who's based in Seoul in South Korea. And we'll be talking about dark tourism, some ghost walks he takes people on, his comic book that he's kickstarted, and he's 100% funded. 100% well done, Shawn. And we spoke on Skype, so enjoy the podcast, and I'll speak to you later. G'day, Shawn. How are you, mate?
I'm good, Ben. How about yourself?
Thanks. Yeah, really be happy you're joining me today so we can talk about dark tourism and your Kickstarter campaign and a few other things. Really excited to talk about it.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me.
No problems, mate. Yeah. Mandy and I first met you on the Dark Side of Seoul tour, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. You did scare me when we walked down that little, what was it, like an avenue past the American consulate?
Yeah, it was the Stonewall Walkway. It's behind one of the great palaces of the Joseon Dynasty, just up past the American ambassador's house.
You had some pretty scary stories right along that ghost tour, but I think that one, which you generally leave that one till last, because that one was pretty horrifying if you're a couple.
Yeah, well, I always leave that. I always tell it on the tour. It's always more fun when there are couples on the tour. It's not the last story, but it's walkways on the route, so we always pass through there. Yeah, and I always share it.
And do you always forget that you've got some couples on?
No. Like I said, if there are couples on the tour, it's more fun.
Yeah, definitely.
It's better. Yeah.
Well, I still think about it.
You guys are doing okay though, right?
Yeah, we're together.
Yeah, you're still together. You're fine. Like, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know if we no spoilers for the listeners, but we'll see.
Yeah. But with the Dark Side of Seoul tour, that's through Zen Kimchi Korean Food Journal. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Started several years ago now by Joe McPherson. And he's an American. He's been in Korea now 15 years. Started originally as a food tour company, and then he expanded, and we now do the Dark Side of Seoul tour, and I also do 2 hiking tours. So it's gone beyond food tourism itself, but that's why it still has the food journal in its name, because it started out as a food tour company. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm still to do the Seoul hike tours with you, but I'm sure if I come back to Seoul, I'll do that with you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they're a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're great.
Have you ever thought of actually incorporating a Seoul hike ghost tour?
No, well, the Seoul hike, some of the Seoul hike stories that I share on tour of other folklore, some of it, some ghost stories, and stories of Tokebi, which is often translated as a Korean goblin and things like that. But so I share some of those creepier tales of ghosts and whatnot related to the mountains on that tour, but not exclusively.
No, fair enough. And why do you think Seoul, or actually South Korea, has so many stories?
Ghost stories.
Ghost stories, yeah, primarily.
Well, I think a lot of it's because it's an old culture. There's been a lot of tragedy here in Korea, going way back. There's, especially in the 20th century, there was the Japanese occupation, and then there was the Korean War. Then and then before the Korean War, there was the division of the 2 Koreas and whatnot. Then the poverty post-war. So They've been going way back as well in other centuries. There are a lot of a lot of tragic things that have occurred, different invasions and whatnot, problems within the country itself, within the kingdoms itself. A lot of things like that just give birth to dark tales.
Dark tales, and it's funny we talk about dark tales because I've actually got you on to talk about dark tourism.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd also like to talk about your Kickstarter with your comic books. So I don't know if you want to talk about that now, or we can talk about it after. Maybe we'll get into dark tourism and I can leave it for the diehard fans right at the end who will definitely want to know more about your comic book.
Sure, yeah, okay. Well, we can talk about the tourism now.
All right, yeah. So I guess when you started the Dark Side of Seoul ghost tours, did you know of the term dark tourism, or was this before this term came about?
I had known about it. Now, I was looking into starting my own ghost walk, a dark tour of Seoul, and when I was researching and putting it all together, someone informed me that there already was a tour. So I was like, okay, well, I don't really want competition. And then it turned out that that other tour was looking for someone to come on board. They were looking for a guide. So I got in touch with the owner, which is Joe McPherson, and then we met, and then we chatted up a bit. Went through his process of how that tour runs, and then I came on board, and then now I have my tour on my version of the Dark Side of Seoul tour. Joe has his. They're both a little bit different. But I definitely knew about the term beforehand.
Okay. Yeah, I only found out about the term through a Netflix show with this Kiwi guy. I forgot his name. It's all about dark tourism, and he goes around the world, and it's really quite interesting. A bit spooky, but mostly interesting.
Yeah, that's the show Dark Tourist.
Dark Tourist, yeah, that's the one.
That was I can't remember now when that came out, but it was an interesting show. But there is an online journal that discusses specifically dark tourism. It's called Current Issues in Dark Tourism Research. That's from 2017. That launched in 2017.
Okay.
There are a lot of resources on there where people research specific topics related to dark tourism itself. But the term itself goes back to the 90s.
Oh, really?
Yeah, people have been, as a field of study, it probably goes back to, trying to think now, about mid 95, 96. Different, some research was done in Glasgow, in Scotland.
Oh, really?
The term arose from that research.
But has it only just become popular now, the term dark tourism?
Probably,
even though it's
maybe in a wider sense.
Among
travelers. Now, people who are interested in heritage studies, which is my field of study, and things like that, they would have known about it and maybe following different research and things like that. But as a lucrative sector of tourism and becoming more popular as a term among travelers, I think that's fairly recent.
Okay, yeah. There, on my podcast, I spoke a little bit about dark tourism, but obviously I've got you on so we can do a deeper dive into dark tourism. But the number one dark tourism site is the 9/11 site, which I find fascinating and also upsetting. But I guess that's what it is. It's a site where, tragedy has occurred. And
essentially, like people visit things like the catacombs of Paris, and
which is fantastic. I love that place.
Yeah, that's dark tourism as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and essentially, dark tourism, it visits places that has some historical significance, but there's some association with tragedy. And
gotcha.
And the 9/11 memorial site is definitely a modern one. No, there are no real modern ones on our tour, the Dark Side of Seoul tour, although I do speak of a few things that are a bit more modern, some urban legends and whatnot. But that kind of leans more into legend tripping, which is related, but not exactly.
Legend tripping. I've never heard of that term.
Yeah, legend tripping is sometimes it's defined as a rite of passage, especially among adolescents who maybe there's some local urban legend where maybe there's a tunnel or something in the town, and it's said that, a dog man lives in the tunnel or something like that. And so the kids dare each other to go, walk through the tunnel. So that's called legend tripping. But it can expand beyond adolescence. People can go visit places that are allegedly haunted. There's a place here in Korea called Gonjiam, which is an abandoned psychiatric hospital, and a lot of stories behind why it was abandoned and things like that. But yeah, a lot of people do go there to try to have ghostly encounters and the sort. I was there 3 years. I guess it's about 3 years ago now. Snuck through a hole in the fence.
Oh, really? So you didn't go on a tour because they probably don't tours there. Is that right?
So legend tripping isn't tourism.
Right.
But it does have that connection to dark tourism itself, because it visits places that are more in the form of legend and not history, places that have some sort of dark story surrounding it.
Wow, that's really interesting. Like I've heard a story about the boogeyman underneath the bridge and so forth like that. So
right.
Is that's all the same type of stuff, I guess?
Yeah, like if there is I don't know if there's a place in your hometown where there's allegedly some sort of cryptozoological creature, a Sasquatch, what we
Yowie.
say.
We have Yowies in Australia.
There you go. Yeah. So if there's a specific place where they're said to roam, where people have allegedly gone missing, if you're dared to go there, or you just get some buddies together and you go and visit this place, you're legend tripping.
Right. Yeah, I've got to start doing some legend tripping. I just thought if I legend trip, I've got to be a legend to trip.
Well, you can be a legend after you trip. Yeah. Just don't become a news.
I love it. I love legend tripping. I'll have to try and figure out what's ghastly around this area and then do some legend tripping. We do have an old mental hospital down the road, but they've kind of turned it into partly housing, and they've knocked down a lot of the old buildings, but there are still some old buildings there.
Yeah, well, that if people are actively going there, even small numbers, then there, and if there's a story surrounding it, if there's some sort of legend surrounding the area, ghosts and whatnot, then
Well, apparently, there is a legend. There were some workers working on some of the new buildings associated with the area, and they would have issues with the electricity going on and off, and some would feel like they were touched and so forth. So it's very interesting. And this is actually, I think they were working on the older buildings, but yeah, that's what I heard. And there are still some dilapidated buildings, which you can see that there's graffiti on the walls. The windows are broken. You can tell people have tried to enter. So if I were to go inside there, I'd be a legend tripper.
You would. You'd be categorized. That's right.
So probably get in trouble too.
You probably could, and that's kind of part of the appeal for some legend trippers is that a lot of the places they visit are off limits. They're illegal. They're could be private property, or they could be closed by the police or something like that. So yeah, there's that sense of danger, being naughty. That's a significant part of it as well.
Fair enough. So that's legend tripping for you. And it's associated somewhat with dark tourism, but dark tourism is more so above board.
Yeah, well, dark tourism, is an organized. Well, if it is, not all dark tours are above board, but they should be legal. There is the idea of milking tragedy for profit, and then doing it through tourism, and that does happen in certain areas. But you can, if you go on a tour like that, you can determine whether it's, if it's appropriate or not. If the organizations or the company is just there for a profit and they have no interest in the history that they're talking about, the dark history.
And I'm guessing Viator or TripAdvisor, I think one of those is where I found your ghost tour.
Yeah.
I'm guessing everything that they would do is above board and so forth. Yeah. But then there would obviously be some websites on the internet which could show you a dark tourist spot or, dark tourism spot, which is obviously not acknowledged by the council or local government or, yeah.
Yeah, well, and then other travelers and whatnot, even other dark tour guides, if they hear about a specific tour that doesn't seem to be acknowledging and respecting the history behind the place where tours are being led, then they'll often be criticized.
And that's what it's about. It's about spreading the history and getting people, what's a term? Getting them knowledgeable, on the dark tourism.
Yeah, that's right.
Or the subject. Yeah,
that's right. Like, you visit places where tragedy may have happened, but the focus is not the tragedy. The focus is the history.
Yes, absolutely.
History is the greatest teacher, right? So the whole point is that you can learn something about a location through the tragedy that happened there. That's the whole point. It's tasteful, and and you're focusing on historical aspects that are important, and that's why the tour guides are leading the tours themselves. And then you try to set up a situation where, even though you're in a place that's tragedy has occurred, you're trying to get the participants on the tour to understand and appreciate the tragedy and the history in a very respectful way.
And that's exactly what I found about your ghost walk, that it was more historical than absolutely scary. I was, I came home, just so interested about, this more a darker Korea,
Right, yeah. Oh, good.
The underbelly of Korea. I thought it was really cool.
Oh, great. Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, we're not thematic. Sometimes we get people, we meet them at the meeting point when the tour starts. And sometimes they'll lean in and do you have any, is anyone going to jump out of the bushes or something? It's like, no. The no themes. We don't dress up like vampires or Bishin, which is, Korean ghosts. We don't dress up and stuff like that. It's not thematic. It's done purely out of respect for the history and the folklore.
But those type of ghost tours I just find really tacky. I've been on one in Melbourne at a hospital. This is obviously the old part of the hospital, and there's a new part. Right. On the old part, you do the tour, and people are jumping out, or a guide will say, "Oh, look at the window in the distance, and you can see someone run past." It's all part of the.
It's like a haunted house.
Theatrics. Yeah. I mean, it's fun, but it's a bit, I don't know.
Yeah.
Really like
the focus. Yeah, we don't like that. We think that the history and the folk tales that we share on our tour is enough to engage people. We don't need to dress up.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Like for example, I had a past participant contact me maybe 2 weeks ago now. She was on the in Boston. There's the Boston Ghost Tours. I think it's Ghosts and Gravestones.
Okay.
And it's a walking tour with partial bus tour. I think they mix it together. It's pretty well known. A big attraction in Boston. And she was on the tour. She's a big ghost walk traveler herself. And cool. She contacted me and she said, I was on this big famous ghost tour in Boston. Dark Side of Seoul was way better. So she's like, they're very thematic and they dress up and things like that.
Yeah, I just don't like that.
Yeah. To each their own. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have gone on many ghost tours. Probably yours is one of the best one, but another really, really good one was in Prague.
Oh, okay.
And it was actually felt very similar to the way you did your ghost tour.
Okay.
It was all about the history about Prague and what they believe would happen in 100 years, or it was all. It's very, very interesting. I think they spoke about a headless horseman that comes back every 150 years, and he'll cross the bridge, and he'll be holding his head in his arm, and they made you feel a part of the history.
Yeah,
which was really cool.
Yeah, that should be the goal of a legitimate tour generally, but also of a ghost tour.
And the thing actually that scared me the most on that tour, they said when you cross the bridge, to your left is a little brick house, and you'll see in the window is a flickering candle. Okay. And they said if you look at the flickering candle for too long, the lady said that she's heard that some people can suffer a great consequence, or someone might die. I mean, I thought that was a bit fun, but guess what? It made me not want to look at that flickering candle.
Yeah, that's the whole point. That's kind of the same thing of the Bloody Mary folk tale, where, the folk story. If you go in a bathroom at night, turn off the lights, close the door, light a candle under the bathroom mirror, then say the word Bloody Mary, depending on the region. Sometimes it say it 3 times, sometimes it say it 10 times, and then Bloody Mary will appear in the mirror. So The whole point of that is like you don't want to do it, but you're also curious as well.
Absolutely. And well, that's what's so much fun about these ghost tours, and why people should actually go on a ghost tour, even if they're a little bit scared by it. There's no reason to be scared about it, or scared about dark tourism in general, because you'll actually learn a lot, and it's quite a lot of fun, even if you're not into ghosts and all that.
That's right. Yeah. It's all for a bit of fun. We've had people on the Dark Side of Seoul tour who are believers in ghosts. We've had alleged clairvoyants who've claimed that they've experienced and they've sent spirits on our tour and things like that. You don't have to be a person like that. You can be a non-believer, which I mostly am, but you're there for the history and the stories, and like you said, for the fun of it.
Yeah. I remember you said that on the tour, actually, that you had someone a couple of weeks back that was a clairvoyant, or someone that could see ghosts.
Yeah, we've had several people. I think when you had done the tour, there was another, that may have been just a few weeks after, there was a guy who claimed he snapped a photo, or first he had a feeling that's, he claimed he was clairvoyant, and then he had a feeling in the palace. Yeah. And then he snapped a photo, and then the photo he snapped, there's a strange looking orb on it that does appear to have an old woman's face. But, take that as you will. So,
did you guys share that on the website?
I think we did. We may have uploaded it. I wasn't leading the tour that night. I think it may have been put on our Facebook page.
Our Facebook page, yeah. I'll have to check that out. And if anyone else wants to check that out, they should check out your Facebook page, the Dark Side of Seoul tour. Yes. Have you done any tours abroad, or do you just host your own ghost tour?
Yeah, well, there's one back home in Newfoundland. There's in the provincial capital, St. John's. There's the St. John's Haunted Hike, and
a haunted hike.
And it's not a hike, like hike up through the woods or anything like that. It's through the city. But St. John's is a very old city. It's one of the earliest European like British settlements in North America. A lot of dark history there. And a local folklorist, Dale Jarvis, he and a couple other fellows there, they've been leading the tour there now for 20 years. Yeah. So did that years ago. I haven't. I haven't been on a ghost tour anywhere else.
Yeah, I've been on probably, I would say eight ghost tours, because whenever I go to a new city that I haven't been to, always try and see if they do a ghost tour. So like your ghost tour, after Seoul, I went to Taipei, but they didn't have any ghost tours.
Right.
Otherwise, I would have done that. But a fair few in Australia as well, because we love our dark tourism here.
Yeah. And something you may be interested to know is that there was a big influx of our participants, our tour guests, since the end of December. Huge percentage of them, the majority, were from Australia.
Really? They must have heard my podcast.
Must have.
No. Actually, have you gone to Germany?
I haven't. No.
Well, if you really want to see something cool, that's dark tourism, the Nazi Party rally grounds. It's awesome.
Oh, right. Yeah. There's a couple of dark tour spots there. Auschwitz, of course.
Auschwitz, yeah.
And there's a few other places that I'm blanking on right now. But Auschwitz is the biggest one. And then sorry, what did the one that you just said?
Nazi Party rally grounds. It's where Adolf did his speech, on top of that kind of podium.
Yes, yeah.
I stood on top of that podium.
Okay.
Usually you're not allowed anywhere near it, but Mandy's cousin, my wife Mandy, she's Croatian.
Yes.
Her cousin lives in Nuremberg, and he drove us to this area.
Right. And
took us inside the Nazi Party rally grounds where you're not allowed to go.
Okay.
And he said, go up to the top.
Mm-hmm.
So we went up to the top, and
it was right on. Well, good.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just struck me though. Struck me that you're talking about Taipei. I don't think there are any ghost tours in Taiwan generally. Not in Taipei,
okay.
But
why is that?
Like you were just saying, you couldn't find any there. You said Taiwan.
Yeah, no. Taiwan, yeah.
I don't know why they don't have any, but there are several places there where there have been where people do go, where there have been alleged ghost sightings and things like that. There's one of the famous called the Dakang. I'm gonna butcher the pronunciation.
That's okay.
The Dakang scene. It's Dakeng. Dakang Scenic Area. Actually, there was the recording of a young girl in red, allegedly a spirit, that followed a group of people. That was recorded on a camcorder, so I guess maybe that's 20, 25 years ago. I can't quite remember. Maybe even longer ago than that.
Wow.
And there's also some hospitals there, and in hospitals around Taiwan that are allegedly haunted, and then going back to legend tripping, people visit them on a legend trip.
Well, I think any abandoned hospital would have some history behind it.
Yeah.
Even the mental institutions here in Australia, a lot of them have ghost tours associated with them. The ones that are closed.
Yeah.
And even the old jails and so forth, which are great.
Yeah. Right. Well, that's like the old prison that's here. The Sadaemun prison, built in 1908 by Japan. I've heard a lot of stories that it being allegedly haunted, and I've spoken to a lot of people that have alleged they've had ghostly experiences in that prison, which is now a museum.
That's not on your tour, is it?
No, but at the introduction I talk about it. I send the emails post tour, and I recommend several places. That's the first place I recommend people visit. It's very important to 20th century Korean history. It was shut down in '87, and then the Korean government reopened it as a museum. So it's the Sadaemun Prison History Hall. Not far from where we met. Yeah, Sadaemun. Yeah.
Sadaemun. Right. Yeah, I've got I should recheck that email for next time I visit, because when I did the ghost tour with you, I had like 2 days to go, and then I was off to Taiwan.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I left the tour late. So if anyone or whoever's listening, that one solitary person, make sure you do the ghost tour first, because Shawn will give you all the information of the best stuff to do in Seoul. Okay.
Yeah.
So make sure you do the tour first.
Yeah, we've had a lot of our guests, when they're doing like TripAdvisor reviews and stuff, they say, try to arrange the tour at the beginning of your trip, because you get a lot of recommendations to visit. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, Shawn.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what else can we talk about? See, I'm going to cut that part out, Shawn,
Sure.
so you don't have to worry.
Yeah.
I was going to say, maybe we can talk about your comic book now.
Sure.
Unless there's more we can talk about dark tourism.
No, I think we hit a lot. Went into legend tripping. I can be here for 5 hours if you want, but
whatever. Yeah. I just want to make sure. Yeah.
No. Yeah, those are all
it's
the
all
key
running. Cool. Well, I will ask about your comic book, Dark Side of Seoul: Weird Tales from Korean Lore.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you kick-funded it, that's a new thing. Kick-funding. As soon as
crowdfunded.
Crowdfunded. It's a Kickstarter / crowdfund.
That's right. Kickstarter is the company, and then I guess the process, the system is crowdfunding. Yeah.
Got you. Well, as soon as I knew that was available to me, bang, what did I do? I made sure I got it straight up.
Yeah, thank you for that again. Yeah,
Oh,
you're the third or fourth backer.
Oh, wow. I feel good now. Well, as soon as I saw it, Shawn, I thought, I've got to back this. Because obviously we're friends on Facebook, so I knew it was coming. We've been talking about it a lot because I love comic books myself, and I love anything scary and just more tales of Korean lore is just it's just fantastic, because obviously when I was on the tour with you, you were telling me so many different stories, but now I've got them all in a book. Is that right? It's a comic book.
It's a comic book. Yes. Yeah. Now it won't be all of them. Now there's some
of them.
Yeah, there's the book itself. Now this is planned. I think this is probably the first time I'm announcing this, but this is the first volume planned of 3. And you know, going into volume 2, volume 3 will depend on the success of volume 1. But yeah. So the comic is set up as a group of people joining the Dark Side of Seoul tour. And they meet the guide, and then the stories that he shares with them is then told through the comic medium. So the readers are hearing in quotations, the story by the guide through the comic book medium, being read on the panels and the pages, in that kind of thing. So it's kind of like Tales from the Crypt or House of Mystery, kind of that old school horror comic anthology where there's a horror host, and then when he's sharing the stories, then the comic book readers get it in such a way that, through the comic medium itself. But one significant difference is that our host, the guide, the tour guide, he's not self-aware. Where like the Crypt Keeper, Old Witch, or the Vault Keeper, they're self-aware. They know they're in a comic book, and they often reference it. They break the fourth wall. They speak directly to the reader. We don't do that. There is a small story surrounding that framing story. So there's a small narrative, I should say, following that framing story of the guide leading the tour with the guests. And the interior tales, there will be 3 stories that will make up about a 50-page anthology.
Wow. Okay. And is there a reason why you guys didn't want to break down the fourth wall?
Yeah. Well, first I should say, a few years ago, I was working with some buddies on another comic book that we called Worldwide Odd, and it was also a horror anthology, and we had a host. But the same thing, he break the fourth wall because there was a narrative surrounding him. There was a story surrounding him that would bring the readers back each issue.
Gotcha.
So breaking the fourth wall, I think the reason they did it back in EC Comics with having like the Crypt Keeper breaking the fourth wall, it was comic relief. So, a lot of funny, goofy puns. The crypt keeper would say, "Hello, boils and ghouls," and stuff like that. These goofy puns, right? It was all comic relief. There's no comic relief in this comic, or the comics that I write anyway. So, no breaking of the fourth wall.
Fair enough. And can you tell me a little bit about any of the tales that will be in this book, or is that all under wraps at the moment?
Under wraps, yeah. No, I'm not going to. All I'll say is the stories that will appear in the comic itself haven't been told on the tour. So mostly not told on the tour itself, because I like to have a segue, a lead into a particular story. So there has to be something along the route that can lead me into a story. These are the stories that I would really love to tell, but I really have no means, no segue lead into the stories themselves on the tour. So they're just stories that I have, but haven't been able to tell on the tour. So that I'm using this as the venue to share them.
Is there any way to get these stories put into a tour so you can have it visually and audibly available to people? Or
one of the rewards on the Kickstarter for the comic book is a video of the Dark Side of Seoul tour. So yes, I read that. That's going to be great. So one of our focus for the Kickstarter was to have very few rewards. There's only 5. And have a very expensive one. So the top tier is just $30.
Yeah, it's cheap.
Yeah, and that gets all of the rewards, including the exclusive first printing of the comic, which is limited only to 100 issues. And and that's what you got. So, but you'll be getting all the rewards that come before that, which includes the video of the tour and a bundle pack of other comics that I've written, and then other comics that were drawn by the artist Tim Bauer, and things like that. So when we do that video, because a lot of people have already done the tour, most people who have supported the Kickstarter so far are past participants or past guests. So they're interested, like you, like they're just interested. They're really keen on the idea, and they want to support the project. So my idea for when we do the video, when we finally get into recording it and putting it all together, I'm probably going to share a lot of different stories that were also not told on the tour and don't appear in the comic book. So everything's going to be kind of fresh for everyone who's done the tour before.
And with the video section, will you be actually outside walking around?
Yes,
as if it's a tour.
It will be done live on a tour. We won't, like our friends or actors. It'll be on an actual tour, and it'll just be recorded, and then we'll edit it. Yeah, we're not going to have like a 2.5 hour video. We'll edit out us walking between spots and things like that.
Sure. So you're going to have a GoPro stuck to your body or your head?
Well, probably the other guide will film me. We're probably going to be, since there's 2 of us, we're going to do maybe like half of the video will be part of my tour, and then half of the video will be part of his tour, Joe's tour. Joe McPherson, so the owner of the company, actually. So, and then we'll just edit it all down into probably 30 minutes or something like that.
Wow, I would like the 2-hour version.
Well, just too long.
Too long.
Be a big file as well. Yeah.
And then, but if it was like 2 hours, you'd really feel like you're on the ghost tour.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, but
it's too difficult. I know
it's too big. Yeah.
No. Maybe just send me the 2-hour version.
Maybe if you come back to Korea, you can film it. Come on the tour and you can film it.
Okay, I will do that.
Then you can have you can have it privately for yourself.
So I can relive the tour and maybe see if there's any ghosts hanging about.
There you go. Yeah, anything pops up on the video. It's funny that you mentioned that. Just quick in the Kickstarter video, there's one part. Look at it very carefully when Joe is on screen himself.
Yeah.
There's a small orb that passes the front of the screen.
Really?
Now it's a massive piece of dust. Because I remember I was behind the camera when that was being filmed, and I saw this big piece of dust float in front of the camera, and then it struck me as like, I wonder if that's going to show up on the camera, and sure enough, it did, and it looks like an orb. So I love it. I was like, well, it adds to the fun factor of a horror comic putting a ghost orb in the video.
It was like it was nearly meant to happen.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I was gonna say some people might not know what an orb is.
Oh well, an orb is the alleged presence of a spirit or a ghost taking the shape of an orb. They're often seen like on videos and cameras and stuff like that. Most of them are very obviously just like, you look back at the Kickstarter video for the comic. Very obviously, it's just a piece of dust that's floating in front of the camera, or dirt or something like that. That's what probably 99.9% of them are. Then there's a few of them. Yeah, they're a bit harder to explain.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating, all this type of stuff, and it's just amazing that you've been able to put this ghost tour into a comic book. I just think it's awesome.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think it's a great way to share more of the stories. Hopefully, we can do all 3 volumes.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, and one big point is that I think Korean folktales are underappreciated and they're overlooked, and Korean history generally is. I think people tend to know a lot, comparatively, a lot about China and Japan, but not nearly as much about Korea.
Well, I would say that Korea as a country is not as known to everyone. People don't know Korea well. They know Japan, China well. They know Thailand. They know America. They know Canada. But, Korea, I don't know. It's still got that unknown factor about it.
It's the ghost of Asia. That's what I've always called it.
It is. It is.
Yeah, kind of floating there. It's there, but no one's... Yeah, like you said, a lot of people just don't know a lot about it. A lot of people know about Korea's modern, like the K-pop and the K-dramas, the entertainment industry and things like that.
Sure.
They don't know a whole lot about its history. And its history is fascinating. It's just a beautiful, long, intriguing history. And the folk tales are, they're dark and they're haunting, and they deserve to be more well known. So that's our goal here, to reach a wider audience and get more of Korea's those few folktales that we're going to share out to a wider audience, and then hopefully, build more interest in Korean folklore, so people then can go off and do some research on their own.
And obviously, Korea would have so many tales. So instead of doing 3 books, you could probably do 6 to 8. I'm guessing.
Very likely, yeah. We don't know. So I guess, like I said, initially I'm thinking in my head it's 3 volumes, but you're right. Yeah, it may go 4, 5, 6 or more. I'm not sure.
Okay. And did you always think of doing this through the Kickstarter program, or do you have any thoughts maybe you could sell it just on the tour or things like that?
Well, we wanted to do Kickstarter. I think right from the beginning I thought of doing it through Kickstarter. Number one is that making a comic book is not cheap. And I think a lot of people often consider comic books, unfortunately, as, disposable media, disposable entertainment. They're not. They're an art form. And
they are, sure.
It takes a long time to produce one. The amount of time that a writer puts into a script, checking a script, laboring over a script, getting it edited, and then taking that editing to heart and understanding what the editor wants and suggests, and then changing it. And then the artist, the illustrator, has to take all of that entire script and then interpret it as art. as images, static images, but with the illusion of movement. So it's a very difficult process. It's an extremely difficult medium, and it's not cheap to do, and not cheap to print, especially. So
no, it wouldn't be. That's true.
Yeah. So we did need the a crowdfund boost to get us going. And that was always in my head. Yeah.
Because obviously the crowdfund just gives you that extra little bit of cash to continue.
Yeah, like the whole thing. Like one thing, I think a lot of people don't really understand crowdfunding still. A lot of people think that's a storefront. Like we're selling the comic through.
A lot of people think that.
Yeah, but it's not. It's kickstarting a project. So the obviousness of the name. So we make no money from this. There's no profit to be had in the Kickstarter.
Gotcha.
It's gone directly into the process of producing, releasing, and then marketing the comic itself, with the ultimate goal of bringing Korean folktales to a wider audience.
And obviously, if it does really well, can you then produce more copies of this comic book?
Yeah.
And then sell them on eBay or sell them on Amazon or something like that, or whatever medium you could sell them on?
Yeah, for sure. Now, we very likely will, once it's produced, once the art and everything is finished, it's all lettered and it's ready to go and it's printed. So this initial first printing, like I said, is limited. It's only 100 issues. We will do a second print. One of our short-term goals is that in 2020, we'll have a table at Seoul Comic-Con for the comic.
Wow, awesome.
So that's one of our goals. And then tentatively, I'm not certain yet, this is something I'm still running around in my head, possibly pitching it to maybe Image Comics or something like that, to a larger but independent comic publisher, and getting it produced, and then it could be on Comixology and things like that.
Got you. You wouldn't try and do it through like DC?
No, they don't take unsolicited scripts. So
okay.
Yeah, you have to go through an agent to do all that. I wouldn't want to do that, because if you go through DC or Marvel or something, DC has if DC launched a new horror, if they relaunched some of their classic horror titles and solicited writers to pitch in, I absolutely would, because I love DC's old horror comics. But
I do have some good ones.
But if for example our comic, this the Weird Tales from Korean Lore, if DC or Marvel were to publish it, let's say, they would they would own it.
Yes, they would own you in a sense.
Yeah, they would
own
the work. Yeah, so I'm not keen on doing that. We want to keep it independent. And the future of comic books is not DC or Marvel anyway. The future of comic books is indie. Support indie. Support indie. Not Indiana Jones. Support Indiana Jones. He's awesome. Yeah, support.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Indie comics. Yeah, that's the future of the medium. That's how the medium's going to survive.
How does someone find out about indie comics? Where do you go? Because I don't know where to find out about really cool independent comics. I wouldn't know where to start looking for that stuff. Well,
related to our conversation, Kickstarter is one place. Comic books, I don't know the numbers, but comic books are probably one of the most popular types of project that people try to get funded through Kickstarter.
Wow, I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah, so I back projects all the time. Some of them get funded, some of them don't. Yeah, I'll go around, I'll see, that looks interesting. Art's great. The creators have their videos on there. I read the breakdown. It's like, okay, yeah, I want to support this. So supporting indie creators. You can go to Image Comics. There's a lot of good indie comics being published through Image. Just Google best indie comics or indie comics generally. You can find a whole slew of comics that you'd never be able to read in a lifetime.
Yeah, I wonder if I were to go into a comic book shop in Melbourne CBD, because there are some pretty good ones. If they would have some indie or not as known comic books, like not DC, not Marvel, something else?
Yeah,
I probably would, I guess.
Yeah, well, have a. I don't think you and I have ever talked about this, but I have a fascination with old Australian horror comics, mostly from
No
the
way.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by that whole. It's essentially an underground collector's industry right now for Australian horror comics. There's so many of them, and I have he's now a friend of mine. He was Joel. He came on 3 tours with me now, and he lives in Australia.
Okay.
And he's looking for horror comics for me. And he went to I can't remember where he was looking around, but he found a few that I was looking for, specifically Weird Tales of Werewolves. It's from the 70s. A lot of that kind of stuff. He's looking for these comics for me. So yeah, if you go around, you can talk to some of the dealers near you and see where they can find you some of the Australia's old classic stuff from the 70s.
Yeah, I can find them for you too. I'll be another hunter for you.
Good, yeah. We can start an online company selling comics, selling comics.
Aussie comics.
Yeah.
That's so funny, and they're all like dark. These comics.
Yeah,
they're not like funny or.
Oh no, yeah. There are a couple of them that are a bit lighter-hearted, but
lighthearted, yeah.
But a lot of the stuff from the 70s, the Australian comics from the 70s, the horror comics, seem to have kind of been influenced, and this is just my guess, they've been influenced by the Italian horror of the 60s and then the early 70s. The films, I mean, the Italian horror films.
Horror films.
Like the Paul Naschy werewolf series, Walpurgis Night, and things like that. Very dark, very gory, very cheap, but very fun. So, the Aussie comics seems to, and I love that. I love those films, those Italian 60s and 70s horror films, the cheaper ones, and a lot of those Aussie comics seem to have been influenced by those.
Well, I don't even know those categories of horror, Italian horrors. I can only think an Italian horror would be undercooking your spaghetti. That would really piss them off.
Too, yeah. Yep.
Well, talking about Italian spaghetti that's undercooked, is there anything more you want to talk about with your Dark Side of Soul Weird Tales from Korean Lore? Is there a link that we can send out to people? I know on my last podcast, which was not related to Travelman Podcast, it was the I'm Inspired Now. I did speak a little bit about it and gave a link, but
okay.
Is it funded fully yet?
It's 95%. I just checked before we
95%.
Yeah.
My God, that's taken a week or less.
Days.
So that proves a point that you're going to hear it now, folks, that there's going to be book 2 and book 3 on the way.
Yeah, because now
that's awesome.
A lot of times people, Kickstarters, most of the people that support them are their friends and their family. So I specifically didn't tell too many of my friends or my family. I wanted to see what the organic interest was. And most of the people who have funded us are past participants and people who've just discovered through our advertising on Facebook.
Well, you've done very well there. 95%. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, and we have 25 days left. So now there is a stretch goal. Stretch goal. Yeah, so our goal is $4,000. So once we get that, we're funded. That's it. We have about $180 to go, and then we're funded, and that's it. We're successful. The stretch goal is a secondary goal. That if it's reached, then the people hosting the crowdfund will do something else with the project. So if we reach $4,500 we will make the comic book color.
Okay, so far it's just black and white, is it?
It's going to be black and white because color printing is really expensive. So Yeah, so it takes a lot more time to do it and things like that. So if we get an extra $500, then we can go ahead and produce a color comic book.
Wow. Okay. So hopefully that happens, because by the time this gets released, this podcast, it'll probably be fully funded, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I'm guessing that it'll be funded within a week, within the 7 days of it being launched. So maybe by the end of the weekend.
Wow. And what happens if you go way over? Because I've got no idea about Kickstarter. Say if it goes to 8,000, no, might not. But what happens?
$8,000. And then
you know what? Well done if that happens.
Yeah, and if that happens, that will guarantee volume 2. And we wouldn't even need it. We wouldn't even need a Kickstarter, because then we'd have that extra $4,000. Well, $3,500, because we'd use the $500 for the color printing of the first one. We would just go ahead and produce the volume 2 next year. Like we have to finish volume 1 first, of course. But then we'd have that money aside to go towards volume 2.
And then how would people purchase volume 2 if that was the case?
Oh, we probably. How would they purchase it? Well, we'd have to think of it at the time. But
yeah.
But remember, like, people don't purchase through Kickstarter. It's not a store.
Oh, so it'd be another Kickstarter project.
Well, my point. No, what I mean is that if we got $8,000, then that extra money, we'd have no need to put that much money into volume 1. So we would just have it on the side to produce volume 2, and then we wouldn't need a Kickstarter.
Gotcha. I think
mm-hmm.
I'm dumb when it comes to Kickstarter. I've funded a couple of board games because I'm really big into my board games. So my hobby games, like not Monopoly, not that type of crap.
Yes.
Other stuff, better stuff. But that's always been funded. I always wonder how it works, because I've got no idea. They go, a lot of the stuff that I am involved with usually goes well over the target.
Right.
So It's just interesting to hear what happens with the money. Obviously it goes to another project or gets put to, as a stretch goal or stuff like that. It's cool. I like it. I'm interested in it.
It's an excellent system, because it gets people, like when you're funding when you're backing let's say us, and then the board games, you are directly involved in its production. You're essentially an investor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So
that's true.
You do really well. Currently, there's a see if I can find and pull up Kickstarter here on my phone.
Sure.
There's an Australian fund right now going on that they wanted, I don't know, like $20,000 or something like that, and they've gotten well over $1 million.
Oh my God!
And I can't remember.
Wow, so that's a way to become an instant millionaire.
Well, hopefully it just goes to the company. But where what was it? No, that's not it. I can't find it. If I find it, I'll send it to you.
No worries.
Yeah, that other Aussie guy who's looking for the comics, the horror comics on my behalf there in Australia. He sent it to me. And he was like, "What do you think of that?" And I was like, "Well, I would absolutely take $1 million. I would not turn that down. That would absolutely that would mean I would, oh, here it is. Yeah,
that would ensure a color printing.
It would ensure. Yeah, absolutely. Here it is. It's the Legends of Mox Machina.
Mox Machina.
Vox Machina. Animated.
Vox Machina.
Yeah, an animated special. They were looking. Okay, here it is. They were looking for $750,000 US.
Yeah.
They're now almost $8 million US.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
They have 28 days left to go.
28 days. Wow.
Yeah. I think they were running a 40-day or 40, maybe 50-day campaign.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, they have over 57,000 backers.
They've done really well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you'll do very well too, Shawn.
That would be nice to have that much, but we don't necessarily need it. but wouldn't turn it down.
Let's go for 8,000.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that would be enough. Yeah, that will give us volume 2.
Well, if there's anything more you want to talk about the comic book, then I might leave it at that. I've really loved chatting with you about this and Dark Tourism. It's been so much fun.
Yeah, great. Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's always good to talk about it, especially my interest and my study for the last 20 years has been Korea. So I'm always eager to share Korea's history and its folklore and things like that with a wider audience, like I said.
Well, maybe you can come on again and we can talk about Korea.
Yeah, sure.
As a country.
And I can recommend maybe some other people who can come on with you and then
sure.
Help promote Korea.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's one of Mandy and my favorite places now. Korea, we were just dumbfounded by this place that, it never gets talked about on travel shows, or not as much as Japan or somewhere like that.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. So hopefully things are turning around. So
I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
I'm sure it is, Shawn.
Yeah.
Thank you, mate. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Is there anywhere that people can follow you? Tour, like
to get in touch with the tour? Yeah.
Get in touch with the tour, or even yourself if people want to contact you.
Well, the tour first, darksideofseoul.com brings directly to the booking site. And find us Dark Side of Seoul on Facebook and Instagram. The Instagram is not as active. Facebook is very active, but we're on both. And for the Kickstarter, we're posting all about it on Facebook and Instagram a couple times a day. So you'll get links to it there. Or if they go directly to Kickstarter's site and just search Dark Side of Seoul, it'll pop up.
Excellent.
And I want to say that the artist is Tim Bauer. The artist on the comic is Tim Bauer. Tim Bauer. Yeah.
Tim Bauer.
Tim and I worked together on comics in the past.
Okay.
He does excellent work. Tim's half Korean. Lived in Korea we met in Korea years ago. Currently lives in Vancouver. But yeah, so definitely big thanks to Tim for being part of the project.
No worries. I'm sure Tim's as excited as you.
I think he is, yeah. we chat now and again. We're like, it's at 90%. So we're pretty excited about it.
That's awesome. And you've got a ghost walk tonight?
I do. I have six guests tonight. Yeah. 6 guests.
Any Aussies?
Don't know, actually. I could check the list there now, but it's not near me. Sometimes, I might. If I do, I'll let you know. Chances are
no
good.
Worries.
Yeah.
Hopefully the weather's good for you.
It's a beautiful day here today. Yeah. Should be all right.
Well, enjoy that, mate. I've had a blast chatting with you, and we'll have to talk another time soon.
Good. Absolutely.
All right. Well, you look after yourself, and I'll be in touch.
Okay, Ben. Thanks.
Thank you, pal. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.